What's up, world, and welcome back to the Global Frequency. I am your host, Nefarious.
And I'm Frequency Girl.
And today we are joined by Brock Smith from Z-Rock Comics, here to tell us all about his indie comic book crowdfunding campaign, The Ferryman, live over on Kickstarter. Brock, what is up? How are you doing, sir?
Hey, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm doing pretty well, and I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Glad to have you with us. Now, Brock Smith. That's a very strong name. How did you go about getting that name? Were you born with it?
That is my birth name. I'm actually named after my father's best friend from his fraternity. And, you know, the 5 and 5 letter names just really round each other out to have that strong effect. So I appreciate that.
I appreciate the monosyllabic sensibility, you know, just Brock Smith. It sounds like, you know, the type of name a hitman would have, right? Anyway.
And my friend one time swapped the B and the S to make my name Smock Brith. And he said, "This is your Jedi name now." And I was like, all right.
Yeah. So where are you from, and where'd you grow up?
Well, originally I'm from Indiana, grew up out here in San Diego in Vista, and now I'm here living in Escondido, California, and I pay a lot of money for that sunshine tax, but it makes me very happy.
I can see that. We were just in LA last week, and I was kind of like, all right, I
kinda,
like the weather. I kind of dig this.
It was kind of perfect. It was like 70s, and then it was cooler in the evening.
Yeah, and it's just the sun. Like I could get used to this.
Right. I understand. I understand why everyone loves the California weather. Maybe not in love with California, but definitely the weather. So how'd you get into comics? How'd you fall in love with the medium? And what was your first crush?
All right, so for me, you know, I dabble through Archie books at the gas station when I go with my parents. And then I used to go to the grocery stores like Stater Brothers and Albertsons, and they had the magazine stand, and I found Shonen Jump, and I read a little bit of that. My first true love, though, so my mom really wanted us to read. She didn't care what it was, and she'd drag us to Barnes and Noble and in hopes that we'd find something. I found this book called Batman No Man's Land novelization. So Christian Bale's Batman Begin had just come out. He was on the cover. I was like, oh, this is cool. I know who he is. And I read it and I fell in love with it. And on the back cover, it said, "Enjoyed this novel. Check out the graphic novel it was based off of." And I went running up to my mom. I was like, Mom, I need this. And she's like, all right, as long as you're reading. And it was history from there, man. Lots of dark start off with.
Little did she know that book was going to set you down a dark and twisted road to making indie comics and spending all of your time writing scripts and drawing pictures rather than being a productive member of society. That said, let me say hello to the other delinquents in our chat who have tuned in to hang out with us tonight. We've got Will from Creators Outlet. He is indeed first from what I can see.
Yes, that's what I have too.
And Will, in case you didn't know, is a YouTuber, and he has his own channel where he interviews indie creators. And apparently he's got a new show called Pitch or Bitch. You're gonna have to tell me more about that one, Will. I'd like to know the format. I'm not quite sure I can ascribe to your philosophy, unless it's the show that we were talking about. Anyway, let me know in the comments what Pitcher Bitch is all about. We also have Mo Biggs, the one and only.
Officially streamed.
He's here with Will right off the bat, right off the rip. He says Neff without a hat is throwing me off. Yeah, me too, Mo.
Throwing him off too.
It's throwing me off too. Shadowpunk is here. He says 5x5 is cool. We're talking about your name, the 5 letters and 5 letters. And Mo says having a Jedi name really accentuates the tough guy vibe. Yeah, you know, and the Jedi beard also helps, right? We got Ogden from 9 Realms Publishing. Michael Odin, for those of you who don't know, creator of The Embrace and Elysian Fields, all-round writer extraordinaire. He's intrigued about the book and has some questions. So
Odin's gonna be a nerd, isn't he?
He is definitely he's. What book? I don't know what book. What book were you interested in?
No, I think he was asking what book he was talking about with the book he got at Barnes and Noble.
Oh, it was Batman something.
It was Batman No Man's Land.
Right, Man's Land. Yes, Shadowpunk, it is me. It is I, the one and only.
He is not bald.
No, I am not. I am not bald. Lots of hair. Yeah, and it is throwing me off. Anyway, so what artists or writers inspire you and have kind of been the examples you look up to that you aspire towards in your torrid indie comic book career?
For me, one of my first true loves as a writer was Frank Miller. Once again, just sticking with that dark and dreary Batman kind of theme. One of my first books was The Dark Knight Returns. And I just loved the absolute badassery of a Batman that didn't care and just killed who he needed to. In recent years,
how old were you when you got into that? Because you talk about like Dark Knight Returns, Dark Knight Rises, as
I know,
though
like,
it was like
really old right now.
You know, a young Brock in his early teens went and saw Christian Bale for the first time, and I'm sitting there going, motherfucker, Michael Keaton is Batman.
No,
that was young.
I went and I saw 89 in theaters for Batman.
Were you 9? Were you 9 or were you like 3?
When I dude, I was probably like 9 or 10.
Okay, fine. All right. We're all good then. Everyone here is like a white guy in his 40s. That's just, you know, like the vibe right in the room. Everybody knows the 80s characters. So really, you didn't fall in love with comics until a little bit later down the line, right? A lot of people talk about their exposure to early, well, not early, maybe early 90s, but to stuff like, you know, the Claremont X-Men run, John Byrne, stuff over at DC, the New 52, things like that. You kind of, it seems like you got involved or, you know, fell in love with it a little bit later. You know, would that be fair to say?
Yeah, it definitely is. I did. You know, I'd pick up comics here and there when I could, and I had the opportunity, and because I just thought they were cool. You know, I grew up on BTOS and Justice League and Justice League, and I'd say it was probably, you know, I'd buy New 52 comics, but it would be trades at Barnes and Noble. And then in college, I really fell into like buying like issue to issue over at Nowhere Games and Comics in San Marcos. And but the New 52 is what really hooked me as a reader. I just loved everything about it, the way they wrote it, the way Jeff Johns, he's a big influence on me and what he did with Green Lantern. Big impact on me as a youth. So
yeah, John's run on Green Lantern's definitely iconic. A lot of people will point to it and say that it's an example of some of the comic book storytelling that really sticks with them. Anyway, so how did you get into indie comics?
Well, I kind of grew up there's all these little hints growing up that writing was something I would be falling in love with eventually. And I just kind of had some ideas pop in my head and I started writing them out. And so I eventually ran into my artist and I said, hey, I've got this idea for a comic book. And they were like, oh, really? And I sent it to them and they were like, oh, great. Like, this is cool. Badass. Let's do it. So
I have to interrupt for a moment. Mobig says comics were like beards to Brock. Once he got a bit older, they really grew on him.
I would
Yeah,
100
it's fair. Yep.
you
So, what then would you say your first gig working in indie comics was, not counting Stickman?
um, wow, I wasn't expecting you to bring up Stickman. My first gig would honestly be the Ferryman. It's a story that we've been working on at Z-Rock for a few months, and we really pushing and cranking for a few months, but it's been a passion project of mine for a year or two, and a lot of it really started to come out during the pandemic. Was when I like word vomited 8 stories down, and then decided to stick with the Ferryman. So this is the true, real first project for me.
Gotcha. So, as a writer, as a creative, this is kind of like your first foray out into the world of publishing. But you've done other stuff in comics, right? When we ran into you at San Diego, you'd run panels at Heroes Con, and it was Heroes, right? WonderCon. Man, I can't keep them all straight. At WonderCon, San Diego, back in 2023, you ran one. You even spent some time over at Ronin, if I recall. So, like, tell me about that. Tell me about like working in indie comics, if before you became a writer yourself.
Yeah. So that's crazy. You even brought up Ronin. Back in the day, it was like right before the pandemic. My buddy Mike Falling came up to me and he said, "Hey, I know you've got some stories. I'm part of this comic company called Ronin Comics. Come check us out. I think your story would do well here." So I got with Ronin and I was helping out, working on a couple stories there. And I was kind of helping with a little bit of other work, behind the scenes. And we ended up doing our first convention was the special edition Comic-Con in 2019, right after the pandemic. So it was that November. And we decided to apply for a panel, and thankfully we got in and started getting our name out there. And from there, uh, a little bit later, I decided I wanted to just start my own company, and Z-Rock Comics was born. And so yeah, we've been paneling at Comic-Con in San Diego, WonderCon Anaheim, all every year since then. This year we're hitting Comic Fest in San Diego, and then next year we're hoping to hit 5 conventions total at least a year, countrywide. So
Which is great. You're making like I guess getting yourself known, making a presence
yeah,
in comics. And Z-Rock is new-ish, right? Like this is your first title that you're publishing through Z-Rock. You haven't even really gotten anything out yet, and you're already kind of matriculating within the indie comics crowd. Now I know, like with the panels that you put together, you had some reasonable names on those panels. Now, how did you go about meeting those indie creators, networking with them, and then getting them to agree to be on a panel at a convention that you set up?
yeah. So once again, I go to Nowhere Games and Comics a lot. That's my home shop. The owner of that is Matthias Lewis. For anyone watching who knows him, he's been in the industry for a long time, so he's always getting people to come in and do signings and things like that. And I just would go and introduce myself and tell them about my company and what I'm trying to do. And then conventions would roll around and I'd reach out to them on social media or something like that. And I'd say, "Hey, we're doing a comic creation panel. We want to inspire future creatives to take that first step and kind of get an idea of what it's like." And so what we do is we try to get someone from every avenue of comic creation, from writing scripts all the way up to editing and retail and public, marketing and public relations and things like that. And as we've kind of started to reach out to people that, people know people. So they'd be like, "Oh, by the way, Brock, this is my friend so and so." And it just snowballed from there. And I don't know, charisma or a luck thing, but I've been very thankful to be in the places I have been at the times I have been.
Yep.
It worked out in our favor, and I'm very glad to have have those things happen.
So in case you weren't aware of what was going on in the chat, the nonsense that was going on in the chat, Chris Fist says Neff FG stalks his guests. He even knows about those pictures with Harvey Weinstein, Brock, because I do a little bit of research into the people that I have on my show. So I'll go and I'll read your bio. I'll go look at your LinkedIn. I'll go look at your social media. I'll kind of like sift through and find out some stuff about you so that I can kind of half vet, but also half have material to ask you questions with, right? And then, of course, Mo says he Hubert stalks them to see if they have any formal education in sequential storytelling, which is fantastic because that is the next question on the list. But also the allusion to the Kubert School being the comic book school where everybody gets their education in sequential art. So as it stands, tell us, Brock, do you have any formal education in storytelling through sequential art?
I won't lie to you. No, I don't.
Okay, neither do like 90% of our guests.
Okay, cool. As funny as it sounds, I think in pictures and in panels. So when I'm writing something down, and even before then, I have an idea of what each panel structure and everything's gonna look like. So I write out the script, and I like to do the plotting, of all the panels, all the storyboarding. So I roughly give a rough draft of that, do a rough draft of that as I'm going, and then I send that with the script off to my artist. And having read so many comics, since I really got it, that helps with the idea of where things should go, how they should flow, and whatnot. So
Chris says, I thought he was referring to Cubert and sequential cubes you have to jump on to win.
And that would kind of, relate more to the cube stalks that he said
he
earlier.
Meant cyber stalks.
Cyber stalks.
It was a typo.
Oh, okay.
So
because I was just going to make
that didn't work.
Never mind. What's up, Aldous? Glad to have you with us. And yes, I think I forgot to say hi to Chris.
Yes.
I'm remiss in saying hi to Chris. Glad to have you with us.
Mobix says our boy Brock looks like a human epilogue for the
he kind of does, doesn't he? With the beard, he looks like he's seen some shit.
So we did have Will wanted to know a little bit more about Stickman.
Okay, well, I mean, there's a question about Stickman later in the interview.
Sorry, chat. I'm relinquishing control back to Neff.
She should
never
ever relinquish control to me. We are going to go right off the edge.
Where we live.
We live off the edge.
Off the edge.
So, you said you have a home base comic shop, right? And that's kind of like where you gravitate, where a lot of your experience and connections in comic books kind of comes up. It's like the locus for you, right? Are you reading anything currently? And can you recommend any titles that are currently on the stands?
Oh, yeah. I'm a big fan of DC's Elseworld stories. Anything that's not, all the main continuity stuff. Cool, but I love the non-quote continuity stuff. So I'm reading all of the new Elseworld stuff coming out. Gotham by Gaslight is fantastic, and so is Dark Knights of Steel Allwinter. Both of those are incredible. I just started Kingdom this last week. It's pretty cool. It's like a murder mystery true crime in a Disneyland theme park kind of idea, which is fun.
Wait, what did you say? Those Dark Ride? Is that what you said?
No, it's called
Gotham Gaslight.
Oh, sorry.
By Gaslight, yeah.
Yeah, and then, Gotham by Gaslight.
Murder King story, the new one. And then I've been reading all of the Johnny Quest and Space Ghost and all of the Universal Monster stuff. That's a lot of the stuff I've been following mainly recently.
Yeah, so I muted us because I think we're having an issue where if we make a noise here, we cut out his mic. And but I had missed part of what you had said. I'd missed the title. So it reminded me of Dark Ride, which is an Image comic. Sorry.
I thought it was the flatulence.
I've heard people, I really enjoyed both stories, but I've heard some people say if you've read Dark Ride, the Murder Kingdom might be a little for you. But I really like both of them. Murder Kingdom's only one issue out, so we'll see where it goes. But both entertaining. Sure.
Chris Fisk says that's where the Joker gaslights Batman into not doing what happened to Joker in the second film.
Oh, we're not gonna talk about that.
Oof. So tell us then, I mean, you mentioned earlier about thinking in pictures. Tell us about your process. How do you go about writing your comic scripts, and like what from the comics that you read do you internalize and then apply to your own process?
That's a good question. It starts off.
I mean, homie, they're all good questions.
It really depends. Sometimes an idea will just pop into my head because that just is how ADHD works. But sometimes I'll get inspiration from old stories that I've read, or games or shows, or song titles and lyrics. I'm a really big fan of Greek mythology, and I love underdog characters and underutilized characters, and so that's why I thought it'd be cool to do a story about Karen the Ferryman, which I figure you'll have questions about that all later without getting
and Stickman.
But yeah, so it all starts with some random idea popping in my head, and I'll just start thinking about potential scenes just randomly. And then I'll come home and I'll jot down some notes on what I thought about, and then I'll start kind of doing some layouts for some of the panels, and I'll just kind of see where it goes from there. You know, the story kind of builds itself as I start to work on it. And yeah, big part of it is I'll do big word vomiting on a document to get like most of it out, and then I'll go through and I'll be like, okay, that's good, that's shit, that's good, let's do some panels of this and then see where it goes, you know. And then I'll say, okay, here's like some of the directions and the dialogue and how can we make this work, and then it just kind of builds from there.
So before we continue, I just want to say hi to the people that just joined us. We got Michael Bancroft in the chat. Glad to have you with us. Mr. Bancroft, I've been following what you've been posting on Twitter with the book. It looks great. We also had Pixel hop in. He's a San Diegoan like you. So
yeah, we hung out with him.
We hung out with him at the con.
Con.
We also had Phil Diaz from Zaid Comics.
Hello.
Wander through. Thanks for joining us. Glad to have you.
Odin's back. Did someone say mythology?
Yeah, you have awoken the contrarian antiquarian.
Do we officially say hello to Aldous?
Yes.
Not bird, nor plane, nor even frog. It's just little.
Why is the show 10 hours long? Because each time someone leaves and comes back, Neff says hi again. Yeah, well, you know, it's me. He was talking about the ADD. I forget who I've said hi to and who I haven't. But anyway, you were saying you vomit stuff onto paper and then you kind of draw or sketch out your layouts to see if it works or something works to go with that. Do you write full scripts now? Like, all right, let me put it this way. How has your process evolved since the 5th grade?
I definitely do a lot of the main storytelling on my own, not collaborating with my friends at a picnic table to start. I just I'll get an idea, and then I mainly will do some writing of some dialogue and some direction, and I'll make some notes about characters to see if I like it or how I might want to adjust it a little bit. And then I just bust out the iPad and I start throwing some ideas around and sketches and, you know, just thumbnailing stuff, man. And if I like it, I continue on with it. And if I don't, I just restart. You know, it's a lot of trial and error, but you know, I usually come up with a main idea like, oh, I want to do a San Diego superhero story. That's cool. What do I want to do that about? Cool. That blah 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 blah. And it just goes from there. That's a whole nother story I'm working on that we're not about. So
I do have to
pain,
admit,
right?
I am a little bit.
P-A-Y-N-E.
What?
It's pain that you're talking about.
It is.
See, I do research too. I know things.
Chris,
sometimes.
the editor, right?
Yeah, well, I was going to be my next question.
Okay, I mean you can, but I'm just going to say I am a little bit disappointed to learn that you did not follow through on the burgeoning and promising art career that you had started in the 5th grade with Stickman. I could have seen that blossoming into a full-fledged illustration career as a cartoonist. Do you want to let the audience know what Stickman was, how it got started, and kind of how it shaped, I guess, the entirety of your life?
Yeah. It was the first time I really told a story with my friends. We would do we'd make our own like Dragon Ball Z comics with like stickers that we get at the book fair. And then one day we said, let's make our own story. And so we came up with stick, and it was just like, we imagined it as like a weekly cartoon kind of thing, right? Where you have your main character Stickman, and we threw all ourselves into the story as different characters. And we just go fight weird shit with him,
And you'd take turns drawing it?
Yeah, we did. We took turns drawing it. We had one guy that was kind of like the main guy. So if we didn't like how some people's stick person looked, we'd say, all right, Alan, come on, fix it. And so he'd come on and fix it. But yeah, we took turns. We all had different ideas we wanted to do, and we'd vote on certain ideas and not. And eventually we had a chunk of our 5th grade class reading Stickman. Stick Boy. Sorry, Stick Boy.
Stick Boy.
Stick Boy.
Yeah, there was a Larry Stickman cartoon game, I believe, right? Anyway, that's it's neither here nor there. What were you going to ask about Payne?
Well, no, I wasn't going to ask about Payne. I was going to ask about his editor. So Payne was the San Diego superhero comic story that he's working on. But you were talking about your process and kind of word vomit and then go through it and do layout and move on from there. Do you involve your editor at that stage, or do they come on later on?
Yeah, they like developmental, or does Chris mostly do art direction, or does he do copy editing and dialogue? How do you guys work together? Yeah. Actually, you know what? Before you answer that, let's introduce everybody to the idea that Brock has a company called Z-Rock Comics, which has a whole creative team attached to it. So you write the Ferryman. Who draws?
So the artist is my good friend Zen Snowden. They've been doing art since they could pick up a pencil, and I met them through Ronin Comics. They're very manga inspired, and you kind of see it reflected in their art, but they're very, very talented, and I'm lucky to have them as an artist.
And what about the rest of the talent involved? Like, who else is on the team? Who else is at Z-Rock with you?
Yeah, so I've got there. So on the Kickstarter, you'll see me and myself and Zen, because this is our main story that the two of us have been working on. And Zen is actually the Z in Z-Rock. And for anyone who is curious, that's how we just mushed our names together and thought that was cool. But I've got 3 other artists working on a few different stories. I've got one other writer that's got a cool story coming up. I have one marketing person, and then we have our editor, CP Christian, but he goes by CP. But so he's our editor too. So there's about
not the greatest of initials, the CP. Yeah. Well, it has some unwanted connotations at times.
You can see that Neff has not evolved past the 50.
I have not evolved past the 50. I still draw in stick figures, damn it.
So yeah,
Chris knows.
Yeah. So,
okay. Well, I mean, we will get into that in just a second or two. So,
Odin's like, I want to know.
I understand. Like, he saw the campaign, and so Odin loves the classical Greece, and Greek myths and antiquities. So we're gonna get to it. I promise. Just setting the stage a little bit. It is 7:30. I gotta get a move on, right? So I guess you said you had no formal education in sequential art. What about business, and what is it like running a comic book company with a dedicated marketing team and a staff editor and working with multiple artists and writers? What's it like? How does it work? Imagine this is part of your AMA at one of your panels.
Right on. Well, I grew up around businessmen. My dad has been a businessman since I was little. Sales, marketing, this and that. My brother, two of my three brothers also went into business for entrepreneurship and marketing. I had a lot of friends that started their own businesses, so I've kind of run some ideas by them on like how things work. As far as running a comic book company, it's really interesting because especially as a startup, you have to kind of really get everyone on board. If they're, sometimes people are like, oh, I'm super into it. And then you kind of got to nudge them to really get the ball rolling. I really didn't have that problem here as much as I thought I would, but I've been very lucky to have a team that's really go get them. I would say the trickiest thing is finding time to do meetings because we all have our day jobs that we do in our other lives. So we tend to have really randomly timed meetings. Yeah.
And is Ferryman the first book that Z-Rock has put together?
Yes. I hesitate because
you hesitate. You have to think about it. What's that about? Explain.
So the first comic that Zen and I completed was an issue of Pain. It was kind of this story that we dabbled with to test the waters as a team. So we have an issue of that complete. We have two of that completed because one of them we did submit to Webtoons for their comic book competition a couple years ago. And that's a different way down the line part of Pain. But so this is the first one that we have fully committed to getting it published, getting it printed, getting a dedicated team to really get it out there and to the people. So, but I would say this was the second story I had. I was writing Pain and Ferryman kind of at the same time.
Gotcha. All right. So you have a comic book company that several people are employed by. You've been working on this book, putting it together, doing the art. Do you have a letterer? I don't recall hearing you say you had one.
At the moment, Zen is the one that has done the lettering. Zen, my artist, not Zen from Hycon Media. God, that would be crazy if he was my letterer. But he's been an awesome mentor and friend too. But no, my Zen Snowden has done all the lettering as well.
Right. So it's you and Zen, CP, a couple of other artists, all working together at Z-Rock, and the book hasn't even come out yet. So I have to ask, how do you guys do operating capital? How have you been funding the business?
It's been a lot of out-of-pocket stuff for now.
Gotcha.
Kickstarter is going to be what really gives us a good boost. Our goal is to come out of this not only getting copies of the book into people's hands, but hopefully having a little bit of extra to really give the company that jumpstart it needs, help us pay my artist, pay myself, pay my editor, pay people who have
we'll get to the crowdfunding campaign in a minute.
Yeah.
Before we get there, I think the time has come. Let's jump in to the Ferryman, the book, not the River Styx.
Cool. Yeah.
All right. Why don't you bring up the campaign and we can talk about this? So, tell me, what inspired you to take on Greek mythology, especially a story about, the River Styx, Char and the Ferryman, the underworld, kind of like playing in that sandbox? What was it about ancient Greece and comics that spoke to you?
Well, pantheons are just cool. I like the idea of there being a deity for every aspect, the various aspects of life. I think it makes a lot of sense. Um, a big inspiration that hooked me was Disney's Hercules that got me down that rabbit hole. I don't know, in my brain, when you read Greek mythology, it feels like superhero, like it feels like comic books before they were comic books. You have all these incredibly powered people fighting these incredibly crazy monsters or other characters, and it it was just really incredible to me that you have this crazy dude who's half god, half human, Hercules, who goes and does these 12 crazy trials uh to make to atone for killing his wife, and then seeing that versus what Disney told us, it's just so interesting to see that differential aspect. And so uh as far as uh, as far as exploring Charon, um, as I mentioned earlier, I really like utilizing characters that are either underutilized or underexplored. And throughout Greek mythology, you see snippets of Charon, or you hear a little bit about Charon, but you never see a whole lot of what he's actually doing. And so I thought it would be really cool to just explore that. Why does he do this? What happens if he fails or falters at some point? Does he have help in, you know, finding all these souls who are constantly dying, to go take them to be judged, for their afterlife? It really just was an interesting theme that I thought would be really fun to explore. And you know, Charon goes all the way back to ancient Babylonia if you look deep enough, and he's a big part of the inspiration for the Grim Reaper, that we have today. And it blows my mind that a character with that kind of impact and influence maybe shows up in Greek mythology a total of 5 or 6 times for a paragraph, or if that. And then even in other media like God of War, he's not very explored in that. You see him at one point, and then I think you kill him in God of War, and that's it. So uh that's kind of the history behind that, why I wanted to do it. I just love it. I love the idea.
So tell us about the world of the Ferryman. Clearly, like, we're looking at a pseudo historical setting, right? Because it mentions that the main character, what's the main character's name?
Name is Alika Eros. I came up with that on my own. I kind of looked up classic or old Greek, ancient Greek names, and Alika came up, and I thought that was really cool. Eros was a last name, and that's some fun stuff that might end up playing into the story down the line. But you'll have to read to figure that out. And I
Yeah,
like.
well, yeah. So it's set in a historical era in ancient Greece, right? So there's a battle between Athens and the Persians, right? Like, that's currently going on. So it's not just like a fantastic fantasy setting. It is loosely based on history, right?
Yeah, so the opening is definitely based on history. I decided I wanted to do an Athenian soldier. I thought the Battle of Marathon would be a really cool starting place. Um, Especially because you have goes back to the underdog thing. You have the underdogs of the Greeks holding back the most powerful army in the world, the Persians, and succeeding in that. So I thought it'd be really cool to have that be the origin for my main character, like how he ends up meeting Charon. Um, so then throughout the story, the idea is that you're going to see different stories and historical points of Greek history and mythology, and how Alika and Charon kind of impact those as we go.
Yeah, so Odin says good choice with the Battle of Marathon. It's very well known. It's one of those, like,
You passed his first challenge.
It's one of those battles in the war between, you know, Athens and Persia that just everybody knows about. It's not Thermopylae, that was Sparta. Everyone kind of, you know, gets that wrong. But Odin is not satisfied with your answer, though. He's going to nitpick. Like I said, he is a contrarian antiquarian. Seeing your characters have some sort of armor, is there a reason your protagonist is not in a bronze breastplate or lycanothorax? I can't even read that. It's too small. Linothorax. Linothorax? I don't know. It's not that. That sounds like some sort of were bug, Odin.
When you get those close-ups of Alika during the battle, excuse me, you know, it's later in the battle. He's probably lost some armor at that point, you know, due to everything going on. That's kind of why he doesn't have the bronze piece there. You kind of see that more in the pages that aren't preview pages. But I just like the idea. You know, I looked up Athenian armor, and that's why we went with the blue, because that was their color. You know, the owl shield specifically that Alika has. Athena's the goddess of war and wisdom in Greek mythology, and her symbol, one of her main symbols, is the owl. And so I thought that was cool. You know, earlier in the story, you see him kind of talking to his kid about gods and how Athena is one of his favorite gods because he is a warrior and she does protect him. That's why the owl's on the shield.
I guess she doesn't do that great of a job because he dies.
Well, you know, it's part of the story. Roll with it, Aaron.
I'm rolling down the hill, rolling like a boulder, being rolled by that guy named Sisyphus. So
that's up.
No, roll it back down. You can't get that thing up the hill. So, yeah. So we have a main character, right? What is the primary conflict in the story? I usually do this breakdown where it kind of like summarizes the pitch of the story, right? Like, what's the setting? Who's the main character? What's the central conflict? What obstacles is the character going to face overcoming the conflict? What are the stakes, and why do I care? That's kind of like the quick and dirty pitch, right? So we have a character. We have this Eros character who is a soldier in the Athenian army, and he dies fighting the Persians, right? So what's the central conflict if he's already dead?
So the idea of it is he doesn't want to die. He doesn't have his obol, so you need an obol to pay Charon to have your soul ferried. And he doesn't have the proper obol, so he ends up making a deal with Charon where he has a temporary obol, like you know, as you see, it's his golden tooth. And he says, hey, let me give you this as an opportunity, as a placeholder, and I can work off my debt that I owe you. And Charon agrees to it. And so he essentially becomes Charon's apprentice in what's going on, an assistant. And what they're doing is they're going down through history and the Greek myths, and they're seeing who hasn't died at this point, why haven't they died, or why did that person live when they shouldn't have. And they're trying to kind of fix Greek mythology. But little do you know, some of the things that he ends up doing are he takes the place of some of those different players in the mythos and the history. So
typical. Elysium is only for the rich. Yeah, you know, you need to have a coin to get to the underworld. And Miranda said that she and Odin had a spear convo today, and I'm 5 years old.
Yes, I know. That's
a very different meaning than the literal meaning.
But I thought that they were surely meant for each other, because I don't think anyone else would have a spear conversation
about the appropriate length of spears. And they weren't even called spears. There were different types of spear. There was like the javelin throwing spear, and then there were like the war pike style stabby spears. And he'll just
jealous that they didn't involve you in their spear conversation.
Pelotas, I don't remember. Odin will go on and on and on about this type of like spear chucking Greek guy. He is saying, additionally, while the owl is a symbol of Athena, most Athenians would put Medusa's head on their shield, as it's also one of her symbols. But then it would be Medusa's head on the shield, not the owl. And the regular idiot reader like me wouldn't make the connection that he's being protected by Athena, who does a shit job because he dies. I would think he was being protected by Medusa, but that I digress, right? Anyway, central conflict, right?
Sorry.
Is
Neff
what?
dropping technical terms like stabby spears as opposed to those other types of spears. That
Well, there's like the stabby, thrusty spears and the throwy, go far spears. You know what I mean?
yes,
Like javelins versus war pikes, that kind of thing. You know, I just don't know what the appropriate Greek or Greco-Roman terms are for them. Odin, please elaborate in the chat.
Miranda,
dude, he's totally just like, you know, angrily typing right now. I can hear it from here. I can hear the angry clicky clacky on the keyboard. So what are the?
Those are my favorite ones, Snuggie.
What?
Pickle spears.
Pickles? Ooh, yeah, I like those
pickles.
too. So they're on this adventure trying to like track down. He becomes Charon's apprentice. What? Why? Like, so he needs to get his body buried. So I read the pages on the campaign. And clearly the sample pages are there. They're out. They're not necessarily out of order, but there's stuff missing, I think, between them because it's not a perfect through thread. Like it's not narratively consistent. It jumps around a little bit. Explain it. He's dead. Charon wants his tooth. Why does Charon want his tooth?
That's something you're gonna have to read to find out. It's something that has to do with his lineage, where he comes from, who his parents, and so far back, you know, as far as his ancestors go.
So I do know a little bit about Greek mythology, and Eros is the god of love, right? He's Aphrodite's kid. Some people think he's like a little cherub baby with curly hair, shoots arrows, makes people fall in love. That's totally not true. As I was yelled at earlier, that's not accurate. That's like, you know, headcanon. It's my headcanon. I don't care. But Eros is the god of love, right? Makes people fall in love. Is he somehow related to the god of love? Am I taking stabs in the dark here?
You're onto something. You're onto something.
Okay, I'm on some. I'm getting high on something. All right, I'll accept that. So the stakes then. They're looking around. They're going through trying to find out who's dead at this point, who should be dead, who hasn't paid their fee. This it doesn't really seem like there's a central conflict there. Maybe something will arise. Maybe they'll find out some sort of undead conspiracy. But what are like the stakes to not like succeeding? I guess what obstacles are there to them going on this cataloging of souls? And what are the stakes if they don't get it right?
Well, the personal stakes for Alika is that if he doesn't do this right, then he's banished to walk the borders, not the borders, essentially the plains or right along the river Styx. He's banished to wander the Styx for the rest of eternity, until he can figure that out. But he's not trying to be left behind. Being dead, he wants his soul to go on to the next phase, whatever that may be for him. As far as each arc or each meeting and soul that they have to fight, it really depends. Part of it depends on what's going on. It will impact what's going on in Greece. It will impact how things develop. And it's like a twist on what Greek mythology is. So you could be seeing, for example, with one of them, you might see Ithaca fall, right, and become the hub of, instead of a good source of wealth for Odysseus, you might see that become like a hub for thievery and plunder and pirates. And then down the line, you do see that there are some main villains, main antagonists, and you see the evolution of the ferryman through the story.
Cool. All right, I can get that. And so I guess the last part of the pitch synopsis or dissection would be, why should I care? And in that regard, like, why is this story in particular of significance? What separates it from other stories of its kind? And what are you doing with it that it makes it meaningful?
I guess the big thing is it's a brand new idea of how to approach Greek mythology. If you're a fan of Greek mythology and some of those stories, I think you'll find it really interesting. Um, you see a lot of personal growth through Alika through the story, which is something we're always constantly trying to approach and do on our own selves. Um, if you're a God of War fan, this is a very God of War-esque story. It was very inspired by that on how I wanted to tell it or some of the ideas. So if you're a God of War fan, that's a fun reason to care. Um, and it's a brand new character that you might not have seen their perspective of. Once again, it's from the perspective of an Athenian soldier learning about what it takes to be Charon the ferryman, what it means to ferry those souls, make sure these people are dying or not dying when they should, and that their spirits do pass to be judged by the three king judges in the underworld.
Didn't who was it? Was it Broken Compass that did the Kill Them Dead, where death is like fuck this and quits, and then like everyone's immortal effectively, and they have to go like track down the god of death and then kill death to put death right or something. I don't remember, but it was what's his name? The Ginger Cockrock. What's his name? You know, James. Yeah, James. That's his Twitter handle. I don't know. But yeah, like I don't know what it is with like this fascination with undead entities and deities. Odin wants to make sure that Hades is not the antagonist.
Because it's not fair to Hades.
It's not fair to Hades. You don't understand. Odin didn't like Simba and Mufasa. Odin liked Scar. Okay. Odin didn't care for Ariel. He liked Ursula. So yeah. Like, you know.
Hades is in there. I know that he's not a bad guy. He's just doing the job that he was given, and he's probably the one god that does his job the best in Greek mythology, I would say. He's not the main antagonist. I'll put it that way. But
who is?
He does butt heads with our boy Alika from time to time, and at some point.
Okay. So does that happen in the first book, or is that like farther in the series?
Well, we're planning on this being at least the first chunk of it being about 12 issues. And I think that's going to be the max of it, unless it really blows up and we decide to do more. But it's planned to be 12 issues. You'll see it within there, that time frame. So you should learn fairly quick and see it.
Gotcha. All right. So, more quite like that's pretty good on the story in the book, right? We only have a little bit of time left, so I'd like to ask you some questions about the campaign, if you don't mind.
Yeah, of course.
Put together the campaign page.
It was a team effort between myself and our editor CP. I typed a lot of the stuff up, the story, picked some pictures, put it together. He did some classes and workshops on Kickstarter pages. We are also thankful enough to have a lot of people that we've met in the past either be a consultant or give us some feedback. Zen from Highcon Media has some success here on Kickstarter. We do have Pat Shand, who is probably one of the most successful, if not the most successful comic book Kickstarter guy as a consultant. So he's definitely helped us.
Wait. Pat Shand was your consultant on this page?
Yeah.
So he proofed your page?
Yeah.
When you say he proofed your page, did he look at it and give you a thumbs up, or did he like go through your page and check it to make sure everything was okay?
He went through it tooth and comb. He said, "Hey, here's what looks good. Here's what I would change. Here's what you should change."
Gotcha.
Yeah. And then we were lucky. Right. I don't know if you remember at the Creators Connect, Matthias actually brought up, trying to get a meeting Kickstarter guy, the comic book guys over at Kickstarter. Well, we ended up having a meeting with Sam. He's the guy that is head of Kickstarter development at comic development at Kickstarter. And so he gave us a lot of feedback too that we were able to utilize and apply to our campaign.
That's great. This is the first sentence on the campaign page. Can you read it out loud?
Let me adjust my specs. The Ferryman is, hold on. The Ferryman.
Make it bigger.
Yeah, would you mind?
I know the font is really small. Someone should have told you that.
I know. I gotta fix it.
Go on, read.
The Ferryman is a new comic book that
nope, is a new comics book. Comics book story.
Okay. Typo.
That delves into Greek mythology. Pat Shand proofed this page, and the very first sentence is fucked up.
That might be on me for not going back and fixing it on time. That's on me, not him. So
I'm just saying, like, you have all these people at Kickstarter helping you with this page, and I went through it. I was like, this is clearly their first time crowdfunding anything. And that's fine, because we all, when we first come to the table with crowdfunding, have a lot of stuff to learn. But it really gets under my skin when I find out that there are people who have extraordinary reputations in the crowdfunding community in indie comics, who have taken others under their wing to show them the way. And this is the first thing that I see. It makes me mad for you. Do you know what I mean? Like, to find out that you had the main guy at Kickstarter and Pat Shannon, they're all giving you feedback on your campaign, and you wind up with font that I can't read on mobile. You wind up with a first sentence that has multiple syntax errors and a duplicate word in the first sentence because no one proofread it. I don't mean to come down on you. I'm sorry. I got heated. It's what happens on this show. You are now in the dojo portion of the show. It is what happens. Let me get back away from this and talk more about the perks and stuff. So how many pages is the book? It's one thing that I couldn't find on the campaign page.
The page, the comic is 20. It's 19 pages of story. There's a page of dedications, but it's 19 solid pages of story.
So it's 19 pages and you're charging $15.
It is, yeah, we are.
Okay. Who came up with your goal?
I did.
What gave you the I guess the justification or like the reason for setting your goal at 6K instead of like 5K or 10K?
6K felt like a good number. We didn't want to try and overextend ourselves going for something like 10K, especially as our first Kickstarter. And we didn't want to do too small of a goal, because we wanted to make sure that we could pay for copies, make sure we could fulfill our orders. I wanted to be able to pay everyone I needed to pay, and ideally.
Right. So what kind of print run are you looking at here?
It really just depends, on the whole Kickstarter, and what people want is the big determiner, but we do have a rough estimate for some of our books. When we got our quote, we highballed probably a little bit for about 1,500 to 2,000 copies of the book. And we got our quote at about $2,500 to print. And so we want to make sure we can publish that. We want to be able to print that and afford it, and then hopefully put some money back into the account and the comment.
$2,500 to print 1,500 copies of the book.
Roughly, yeah.
It's like about $1.50.
Yeah.
Right. So you're printing for $1.50 and selling for $15. Okay. Now, if $2,500 is what you need to just get the print order, and then of course you do need to fulfill, and we're going to talk about your shipping in a second. What accounts for like the rest of the 6K? Usually on a lot of campaigns, you'll see like a big wheel at the bottom, right? Like a pie chart, and they break down like what the expenses are for. Like if the total is 6K, they'll cut it into slices for like marketing or Kickstarter fees or like art and printing and stuff like that. Do you have like a cost breakdown in mind? You said you needed to pay everybody. You're paying yourself, your artist, your marketing person, and everybody working at Z-Rock, plus you're paying the printer, and like how are you handling fulfillment, all of that? Can you explain it to me?
Yeah, so the idea of it is myself, my artist, my editor, we've all known each other for a bit, and we understand that for us a lot of payment is going to come out of this. The other folks, the way we do it at Z-Rock is um, not everyone is going to get paid for every campaign. You get paid for the campaign and the story that you helped create. So for this one, I'm paying myself, my artist, my editor, I'm my marketing person. I am paying for one of those covers outside, because two of those are my main artists, two of them are not. And then we want to be able to print, so we need some money for that. And then the overall goal too, the other part of it is we want to be able to put some money back into the account, so we can have into the Z-Rock account and the company, so we can afford to start tabling at conventions, um, paying people. Maybe some people do want to be paid ahead of time, so we want to be able to say, okay, cool, we can pay for that ahead of time. We want to be able to travel as a company. One of our goals next year is to go to like Baltimore Comic Con. So we can.
Comic Con go every year.
Huh?
Is it? That's a Baltimore is a good Comic Con. We go every year. It's a good one.
That's what I've heard, and so we really want to be able to afford to go to that, whether it's to officially table or just being able to afford going and a panel. So there are plans. I know it seems like it might be a little hefty of a goal for a first Kickstarter campaign, but we do have plans, and we do think when we hit this funding, we're going to be able to put a lot of our other plans into action.
Gotcha. Okay. So looking at the campaign, one of the things that I found really striking, and I harp on this, Travis harps on this, a lot of us in the indie comics groups are always harping on this, is shipping costs. And everybody's inching up higher on their shipping costs, and it's becoming a very big burden to a lot of us, to a lot of creators. Your shipping costs are only $3. How did you price that out?
I honestly wanted to just make sure, I wanted to motivate people to say, hey, shipping isn't going to be that expensive for us. I know I hate seeing, I want to get something on the internet from a website or a creator or whatever, and shipping is almost as expensive sometimes as the product. And
so are you taking a hit on the shipping?
We might, and we might have to pull some of that out of the funding too, but that's what part of the campaign fund is. The goal is we want to be able to also pay for shipping out of that as well.
Okay. So then the first the $15 tier has a $3 shipping attached to it, which I think is great. Very low shipping, very attractive. The next tier up, the next cover, same book, different cover, that now has a $5 shipping price tag, and that is the same all the way through, no matter how many more books you add, no matter whether you're adding the original art or anything like that. Can you tell me why you go from $3 for a book to $5 for the same book with a different cover, and then maintain $5 all the way through, regardless of however many items you add to the order?
Yeah. There's a couple reasons. One is that first cover, that is our main cover. That is the one that we want to become like recognized as a household cover in comic book. So I felt like doing the $3 shipping on that would really motivate people to want to invest in that. As far as the $5 for everyone else and all the other tiers, it's tricky to want to bump a little bit on that, but it does help us reach some goals, right? We have Mark Habiger from Little Fish Comics and Gustavo Vasquez of Big Hero 6 doing those a couple of those other covers. And variants aren't cheap, and I want to reflect how much we appreciate those creators.
Well, I mean, raising the price for the cover, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But making the shipping more expensive, that kind of didn't.
Are you like packaging them differently because they're variants, or do they come with the main cover and the variant cover? So there's 2 books, so it's up a little bit more because of weight. Like, what?
I mean, like, so the Ferryman, the Vasquez cover, the Hagabar cover, your cover, or no, I'm sorry, the Snowden cover, and the 3 books all together, all the covers, all have the same shipping cost. It's $5. $5, great shipping price. I'm not knocking. I think that's fantastic. I'm just trying to understand, in the world of shipping, more often than not, what we're doing is we're basing our shipping on weight and region domestically. And that is a question we did have from Odin in the audience. Are you only shipping domestically, or are you also shipping internationally? But you can answer that in a second with just actually just answer that real quick so we can get that out of the way. Are you shipping domestically and internationally, or just domestically?
Right now, our main focus is domestically. We haven't seen a lot of folks following us that or interested in the comic that have been overseas. If that does show up to be something that grows for us, then we'll adjust accordingly.
Right.
But you do have a digital tier for any international
backers. International backers. If you're not shipping overseas, that's fine. That's a huge headache off of your shoulders. If headaches are off your shoulder, you know what I mean. Yeah, international shipping is a huge pain in the ass. Don't do it if you don't have to. That said, 1 book in a box with a bag and a board and a stamp for $5 versus 3 books in a box with 3 bags and boards and a stamp being 3 times the weight for also $5 has me wondering why the 2 things are shipped for the same cost. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Once again, it goes to wanting to make it attractive for people in general to invest.
Gotcha.
So,
all right, that makes sense. Yeah. So let me see. Are you planning any stretch goals for the campaign? I know you have a funding goal of 6K, but once we hit that 6K, do we get like some stretch goals unlocked after that? Are you going to be adding anything to the campaign, or is it, just hit it and we're good?
At the moment, we don't have any stretch goals. But if we do end up hitting that 6K sooner than we expect or sooner than planned, we do have some really cool, not only concept art, but we have some exclusive graphics that we decided that we can use as, hey, you're someone who contributed after we hit our goal. You're going to get, an extra piece of art or something like that. So, but I think the more we can raise, the better.
Yeah. Oh no, definitely. That's one of the reasons that I like the stretch goals is they incentivize further building the financial total on the campaign. It's one of the ways that, like, if you have a really sick stretch goal and you're like, hey, we're only 1,000 from this stretch goal, go get your friends to back it so that we can unlock the stretch goal and they get it too. They get that stretch goal. That one that you really want, you get your buddy to pledge $20, get his book, and we break that $1,000, he gets one also. And that, like, the whole point of stretch goals is to incentivize people to jump on because they're getting more for the value of their pledge, right? Like, that's the psychology of it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. How have you been getting the word out about the campaign? I know you work or you have like a local comic hub where you are very blessed to be in the company of a lot of great folks, but how have you been going about getting the word out other than that direct word of mouth?
Oh, is he still here? Uh-oh. I think we may have lost him. I don't know what happened, but it is very dark in California suddenly. We will hopefully have him.
Yeah, we'll give him a. I mean, it is
Join us
8:10. It looks like we've gone a little
again?
bit long. I don't know if he. Do you want to DM him the link again in case it didn't work?
He says he has no idea what just happened. He just
okay.
messaged us. He's not sure what's going on. Maybe I will tell him to try exiting and coming.
Oh, how
Turn it
about this?
off
I'm
and
just gonna
turn it
kick
back
him
on.
Yeah, I don't know what's up with my hair, man. My hair is weird. My hair's acting all sorts of strange. It's the last time I get it cut that short.
So I just told him to pop out and come back in. Oh, here he is.
There
He's
he
back.
is. Hey, welcome back. So I don't know if you heard what I was saying. How are you getting the word out about the campaign?
All right. Yeah. We have everyone working to spread the word on the team, you know, doing their part just to say, hey, this is a company I work for. This is our first story. We're really excited to get it out there. We've been doing all kinds of posts on social media. We've been getting on as many podcasts as we can, planning them out. We've been jumping on claim sales for Nowhere. I work part-time volunteer at Nowhere Games and Comics. So I've been spreading the word there. And then we're also having a launch party on Saturday at Nowhere Games and Comics. So anyone who is in the area is welcome to come by from 1 to 6. Pixel, I know you're in San Diego. So if you're free on that, we have exclusive art. So
definitely worth checking out, man. Do you think about live streaming that?
Yeah, we're debating on if we want to do it. It is something I have to lock in with my editor to see if it's what we want to do and how we want to do it. But that's up in the air. We might record. I think we're gonna do some recording to be able to post stuff later too.
Throw something on TikTok maybe later, just to, you know, you being mobbed by some adoring fans clamoring for your signature. That'd be cool.
Because you have a podcast, right? Bags and Board Show or something like that. Is that correct?
Yeah. That started off as a podcast we wanted to do, where we wanted to just get people on and we would talk comics, top shop, and you know, have some fun with it. And it not quickly, but over time, it became kind of a third party thing that we would do when we got to it. We do want to bring it back. It is something we're very excited to do. But it's just not in our cards right now, unfortunately.
Yep. No, I totally get it. Live streaming as a commitment, doing it on a regular schedule is a huge pain in the ass. And we had to cut back our Monday, Wednesday, Friday shows just down to Wednesdays because of convention season. In fact, we took a period of time off. I think it was like 3 months of not doing the show at all. And starting it back up is, you know, you got to ease yourself back into it, get back on the regular schedule, know that there's going to be a show planned for the show, book the guests, blah, blah, blah.
Odin says, all right, guys, it's time for me to prep for my show at 8:30. So once we're done here, y'all can pop over there and check out Odin. He says, but Brock, I wish you the best of luck on your campaign.
And all this is going to head over there and do the chat. Is that the When in Rome show? I can't tell anymore. I don't know what people are up to.
If it is, then that's him and Miranda. So if one of you guys have the
link, drop the link. We don't have the ability to forward our audience to you, but
yeah, we're not that cool.
Yeah, we're not that cool. We're not Bancroft. All right, so this is your first crowdfunding campaign, right? So what difficulties have you faced so far in preparing for the crowdfunding campaign, setting up the crowdfunding campaign, executing it? Like, what have been some of the hurdles and obstacles you've had to overcome?
Definitely just learning the ins and outs of Kickstarter, how it works, who's on it, what genres work. Part of it is learning who in my network that has always been like, yeah, we'll support you in what you do, who actually sticks to that and who's just like, oh, cool. Right. It's not always the same number that you'd expect it to be, but then there's other people who do surprise you. I would say our biggest challenge will be probably the shipping aspect, because we do have to make sure we do that right. We don't want to mess that up or have stuff go out when it, when after we promise that it's going to go out. And we want to just make sure we do it right, committing every day on top of everyday life to making sure we have the right posts, the right videos, the right opportunities to get the word out there and make sure all teams on board, all hands on deck. And scheduling, it's tricky. Like, I won't lie, I just got in a car accident last week, so I've been having to do.
Oh no,
that's crazy.
Yeah. So, like, life, I would say, is the biggest challenge. I work a 9 to 5. Well, it's a 6 to 2:30. But point being, I work an 8-hour shift 5 days a week. And then on top of volunteering, on top of getting in an accident, it's tricky to keep those things balanced. So I have to make sure I'm not getting distracted when I need to sit down and do Xerox or Kickstarter stuff. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of tricky stuff, but we work around it, we maneuver, we make it happen the best we can. And, we just got to have that confidence that things are going to work out how we expect, if not better.
Yeah. I mean, having a positive attitude is the best way to go. If there's one big lesson you've learned so far, what would it be? And can you share that wisdom with our audience?
Triple check your story before you go live. Make sure your first sentence have any. No, that truly is a big one. I definitely am a little embarrassed, I won't lie, and I do appreciate.
Don't worry, nobody watches the show. It's fine, and you can still fix it.
You've done it before too. Like, I had a typo on something once, so
once.
Like
one letter.
Yes, it was one letter, but
letter.
But I still am like, I had a typo that I missed.
Yeah,
one letter.
Yeah.
But I still obsessed.
So you can still fix the page though. You're fine.
Yeah, so that's part of it, but I would say the biggest thing I've learned is to be consistent and consecutive. You can't take breaks. In our first day yesterday when we launched, we made $1,000. It was awesome. Nice. The hardest part about that's going to be keeping the ball rolling and not getting complacent.
Right. And it's a 30-day campaign, right? You have a whole month of getting out there and promoting.
Yeah, and it's remembering that there are going to be lulls, and people do contribute at different times. You're going to have that initial pop. You're going to have people that do pay or do support and contribute about halfway through, because our halfway through is the beginning of November. So that week after the first, we're hopefully going to get another pop because people have paid bills. That's the goal.
I got to ask though, why run a crowdfunding campaign right now? Like, why not a month earlier or a month later?
Well, we were originally going to do it about a month or so earlier. The initial plan was early fall to launch the Kickstarter. We realized we weren't ready. So we wanted to make sure we pushed that back, gave ourselves proper time to launch it. We didn't want to do later because from what I've seen and what in my head, nobody's going to want to contribute to a Kickstarter with all the holidays coming up. They've got plans to go on trips or get certain things for people. The holiday season just doesn't seem like an ideal season to launch a campaign.
It's the lean season. December through February is the lean season. People get their tax returns sometime in March. So Q2 is really when crowdfunding ramps up again, and it generally peters out the tail end of Q4, which is where we're at. My one real, like, I don't know, like my real wonder is we are 20 something days out from the election, which happens every 4 years. And that is dominating everybody's social media.
I say, do you find that you're having trouble getting
traction on Facebook or on Twitter or with ads or anything like that? Because it is like one of the bigger elections. The candidates are very polarizing. The nation's very much divided. A lot of people are saving their money and not necessarily spending it on a book that's not going to get there for 6 months. Like, looking at the crowdfunding landscape right now and why people are trying their hand at this this time of year.
I think for us, we felt we were ready to launch our Kickstarter, and it's something we have been wanting to do. So we didn't want to put it off again. You know, it's not something we were looking forward to. As far as going up against, you know, things going on with the election, you know, on social media, I think part of it depends on the people we're reaching out to. You know, a lot of it's going to be, who are you following on your pages? You know, are you following only political stuff? Are you following nerd culture like that? So a lot of what we've done is we've reached out and made sure we've been following a lot of kind of nerd culture, comic book culture pages and people, to make sure that way when we go to do our stuff and put our posts out there, that we hit as many fans of the genre and of the industry that we can.
That makes sense. Try and like keep it within the cultural zeitgeist of the moment, rather than letting the word just kind of get screamed into the void of politics and general consumer speculation.
Right. And then at that point, it's just a matter of, you know, our friends know people who maybe don't follow comic culture stuff. So ideally, everyone that we reach out to, everyone that contributed, will go and tell, you know, 1 to 2 to 5 friends, like, hey, check this out. This is cool. And that's hopefully how we can overcome the other side of that, is word of mouth to might not see, who might be following us.
All right, cool. Well, I mean, it sounds like you have a pretty good idea there.
I was going to say, you also don't have to wait for 6 months, because this says it'll fulfill in February, which is less than 6 months.
Oh, hey, that's fantastic. Yeah, 3 months. So yeah, I guess you already shopped your printer, and you know that when you put the order in, you can expect to get it within, you know, I guess since November will run to December, you can put your order in, you'll get it by, say, January, and you'll start fulfilling in February, or you're going to be like February 1st or what?
Our goal is to start fulfilling in February. That's kind of the estimated ship date for everything right now. And that's what we're shooting for. You know, if anything happens, you know, we're going to be honest about it and upfront with everyone who's contributed and following. So they
and you guys are going to do your own fulfillment?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Good. Yeah, fulfillment's a pain in the butt. I think it's a pain in the butt.
This February, I guess we know what Ogden is getting Miranda for Valentine's Day.
Aww.
Aside from his bathhouse boudoir photo.
Anyway, thank you so much for coming on. I think we had a great conversation about the Ferryman, which is now live on Kickstarter. Link is in the description of the video and also pinned in the chat. They launched yesterday. They got 30 days to go, going strong. They've already raised $1,300, 26 backers. The book is done. If we didn't mention that earlier, like it's all ready to go. So it's not like you're going to be waiting on them to finish the book to send it to the printers. Once they get the total count in, they're just going to send in the order, get it, and it'll be fulfilled by February. So, you know, be confident if you want to back the book that you're going to get what you're backing. So, I guess thanks again, Brock. And for all of you who aren't subscribed, please hit the subscribe button, hit the thumbs up, give us a like, because it helps us in the algorithm. And you can always click the bell for notifications to find out when we go live next.
And tune into the frequency.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Having me. Bye.